When we think of the fall of Rome, everyone imagines barbarians at the gates, legions being slaughtered, or emperors poisoned in marble palaces, right? But empires don't just collapse from a sudden blow from the outside, they rot from the inside out. And one of the most insidious, most cursed forces driving that rot has always been money. See, Rome didn't just fall because of invasions or corruption. Rome fell because its currency collapsed, and the lessons from that collapse are still valid for every modern economy today that thinks it can play games with money and get away with it. Let's set the scene first. For centuries, the backbone of the Roman economy was the silver denarius. When it was first minted around 211 BC, it was almost pure silver. It was the currency of choice in every corner of the empire and beyond. Soldiers were paid in it, merchants sold goods for it. Ordinary citizens saved their hard-earned wealth in it. The denarius wasn't just a coin. It was trust made of metal. The power of the empire and the value of the money were tied at the hip. As long as people believed in Rome's power, they believed in the money in their pockets. But running an empire is expensive business. Legions need to be paid. Roads and aqueducts need to be built. Wars need to be financed. By the 2nd century AD, Rome was running out of breath trying to hold the borders against Germanic tribes, Parthians in the east, and internal turmoil. Tax revenues were no longer covering military expenses. So, what did the emperors do? They resorted to the oldest, stalest trick in history: debasement. Instead of raising taxes on citizens and risking a backlash, which is always risky, they secretly reduced the silver content inside the denarius. Numbers don't lie. The story is plain to see. At the dawn of the empire under Augustus, the denarius was 95% silver. By the early 3rd century under Caracalla, this dropped to 50%. By the mid-3rd century under Gallienus, the denarius had less than 5% silver left in it. That noble coin, once made of pure metal, had evolved into a bronze token washed in silver. The people weren't stupid, of course. They saw the difference. They felt it. The result? Inflation. Prices skyrocketed because money was no longer tied to real value. A measure of wheat that used to cost 1 denarius suddenly cost dozens. This isn't some abstract economic theory I'm telling you. It was a bitter reality that ruined the lives of ordinary Romans. Soldiers demanded raises, saying, "This money isn't enough." Merchants said, "I won't take this rigged money," and turned to barter or gold. Local economies literally went back to the Dark Ages, back to bartering goods, because trust in money was gone. And the more trust eroded, the more emperors printed that worthless money, thinking they could say value with volume. It was a complete vicious cycle, that cursed loop that repeats in countless inflations from that day to this. The crisis peaked during what is called the crisis of the 3rd century, between 235 and 284 AD. Rome fell into chaos for nearly 50 years. Invasions, plagues, civil wars, and economic bankruptcy. Emperors ascended the throne at dizzying speeds, sometimes assassinated within months. Behind this political drama actually lay a collapsed financial system. The state demands taxes, but the value of the money paid drops every day. Farmers say, "I'll leave the land rather than pay this money," and walk away. Trade networks were broken. The Roman government tried every desperate measure, from price controls to forced labor, to keep the system afloat. None of it worked. One emperor, Diocletian, tried to stop the bleeding. In 301 AD, he issued an edict on maximum prices, fixing the price of over 1,000 goods and services. The penalty for breaking the rule was death. The result? A total disaster. You cannot hold prices down by decree when the money itself has become trash. The black market exploded. Official trade came to a standstill. People learned this the hard way. Laws cannot fix broken money. These things happened centuries ago, yet how familiar these stories sound, don't they? Finally, Rome abandoned the denarius completely. Constantine the Great introduced the solidus around 312 AD, a gold coin of fixed purity. This provided stability for centuries in the Eastern Rome, that is, Byzantium. But for the Western Empire, it was too late. It was on its deathbed, out of breath. The hollowing out of the denarius had rotted Rome's economic core. Armies couldn't be fed, trade ended, trust evaporated. The fall of Rome wasn't a single event. It was a long unraveling, and the collapse of the currency was the sharpest thread in that unraveling. So, what good is this history lesson to us today? It is good for this. The destruction of money is always the destruction of empires. Rome thought it could fool its people by minting coins that looked the same but had less value inside. Modern governments today think they can do the same by printing paper, playing with interest rates or inflating away debts, but the result is always the same. The people pay the bill, wealth is destroyed, and trust collapses. Rome learned this the hard way. If we ignore it, we will learn it that way too. History didn't stop teaching lessons after Rome. Since then, the same script has played out in every major inflation crisis. Governments debase money to cover costs, elites protect themselves with real assets, and the citizen takes the hit. The crisis in Rome was just the first major example of this collapse blueprint. Let's fast forward to the 20th century. The echoes are deafening. Germany, after World War I, crushed under the heavy reparations of the Treaty of Versailles. What did the government do? Just like Rome minting more coins. They ran the printing press thinking they could cover debt with paper. By 1923, hyperinflation was ravaging everything. A loaf of bread that cost 1 mark before the war rose to over 200 billion marks by the autumn of that year. People carried their wages in wheelbarrows. Retirees starved to death as their life savings evaporated. And just like in Rome, those with debt got off easy with inflation. But those with cash were ruined. Those with real assets, land, factories, foreign currency, came out stronger. When money became meaningless, that economic despair fueled political extremism and paved the way for Hitler's rise. Zimbabwe went down the same road in the early 2000s. Production fell. Debts rose. The government sought the solution in the printing press. By 2008, inflation was at an unimaginable level, 89.7 sextillion% annually. Prices doubled every day. Shops couldn't keep up with changing price tags. Finally, Zimbabwe threw its own currency in the trash completely, forcing its citizens to use the US dollar. Once again, a government thought it could cheat reality. Once again, the people paid the price. But don't just say these are extreme examples and move on. The ghost of Rome walks even in modern, developed economies. Think about America. In 1971, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, severing the last link between money and tangible backing. From that moment on, the dollar turned into what economists call fiat money. No gold behind it. Just trust in the state. And just like in Rome, the temptation to live beyond one's means became irresistible. In the years that followed, debt ballooned, money taps opened, inflation turned into an undercurrent constantly working beneath the surface. Maybe we didn't carry money in wheelbarrows, but we see our purchasing power melting every day. To buy today what $1 bought in 1971, you need more than $6. Coins look the same, banknotes look the same, but they have been hollowed out. The trick is always the same. Governments cloak inflation as growth, even when costs rise faster than wages. They tell you, look, wages are up, prosperity is here. They market debt as investment, even though it actually funds consumption. They count a rising stock market as proof of wealth, even when the majority owns no shares, just like Roman emperors. While secretly stealing value from every coin, every paycheck, they claim nothing has changed. Do you know what makes today dangerous? The scale is now global. Rome's collapse was regional. Weimar was national. But today, the entire world runs on fiat currencies, massive debts, and central banks ready to print trillions at the first crisis. This means the next collapse won't be limited to a single country. It will spread in waves to the whole world. And if history is a guide, the ones who suffer won't be the asset-owning elites. It will be the millions relying on their salaries, pensions, and increasingly fragile money. So, what will you, as an individual, take away from this Roman story? 1. Be awake. Inflation is not an accident. It is a policy. This is the hidden tax that has destroyed empires for 2,000 years. 2. Realize this. Real wealth is not in paper or numbers on a screen. It is in assets that hold their value even when money becomes trash. Land, skills, a productive business, resources. 3. Don't get comfortable. Romans in the 1st century would have laughed if told their money would one day be worthless. Germans in 1913 would have mocked the idea of carrying money in wheelbarrows. But the same scenario played out every time. The fall of Rome reminds us. Financial systems collapse slowly at first. Then suddenly, when trust runs out, when money stops being real, society comes undone. Contracts become void. Trade stops. The state loses authority. The barbarians at the gate might finish the job, but the real killer is always inside, at the head of the treasury. The bottom line is this: history may not repeat exactly, but if you don't understand it, it will roll over you like a steamroller. The Roman currency crisis wasn't just about bad emperors or greedy people. It was about how fragile money itself is when abused by power, and that fragility never went away. If what I've told you just lit a light bulb in your mind, hit subscribe. History has a lot of answers, and I'll show you where to look.